Welcome back to Clubhouse Chronicles, the place where the Central Illinois music scene gets loud, proud, and unfiltered. I'm Twitt, your host with the most, ready to spin you the stories, the sounds, and the struggles behind the bands that are making waves right here in your backyard. This show is powered by our friends over at Broken Record Music Club, your favorite independent record label, bringing you music for whatever you are going through. With that, let's buckle on up because this isn't just a podcast. It's your front row ticket to the heart of your indie music scene. Today on our show, we have someone that was previously mentioned on our show. That's how we found out about her. She is the creative force behind most of the Emily the Band album artwork and creative. They also bring along some pretty awesome live show photography in the Central Illinois music scene with a lot of cool bands, some including Sweet Milk, who we've had on our show. She is none other than the great Caspian Voss. Welcome to the Clubhouse, Caspian. Thank you so much for coming on.
That was an incredibly sweet intro. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I love the energy you bring into that intro. Just like, I'm fired up. I'm ready.
Let's go. That's what I hope is gained from all of that. So I'm glad someone has said that it exhibits the energy.
Really felt like a good cup of coffee. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Really happy you asked me to be on. I love to talk about all the stuff I get up to. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I'm going to say this, Caspian, you might have the coolest name, one of the coolest names ever. Like, you sound like a pirate of some sort. Like, oh my gosh. When Cammie mentioned your work with Emily the Band and they said your name was Caspian, and I was like, wait, what? Like, that's sick.
Thank you. That's so cool. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Yeah, I always tell people, like, I get a lot of Caspian when I introduce myself to people. So I always like to say Caspian, like the sea. My full name technically is Caspian June Voss. June coming from my mom. So I do always feel like I need to be like either frolicking through the woods with like the god Pan or like bursting out of a thing of flowers. But I like pirate too. So
I mean, both of those are great descriptions as well. So you could see it in your head, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And we kind of messaged a little bit. We were talking about, you know, some of the work that I do, and you are just so passionate about the scene and the same stuff that I am. So I'm super excited to kind of dive into the history of your time as a photographer, videographer, and really just get all the details. So if you're ready to go, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I'm absolutely ready. I'm so excited to talk about anything and everything. So
awesome. Well, let's just start at the beginning then.
Cool.
You're well known for your photography. That's, as I mentioned before. What initially got you into photography? Is it just something you kind of picked up on your own, or is there a bigger story that's behind it?
You know, it's really interesting. I've been doing photography since I was about 16, 17, and I had a unique experience coming into it. I grew up I was homeschooled all through high school, so I wasn't really in like a community of folks for a long time. And I found this old point and shoot Kodak camera powered by 4 AA's in like a closet of my mom's bedroom. And I took it out, and I described it to friends as like, it felt like the first time you get a deep breath. Like, I just picked it up and it felt so great. And I started to shoot more and more. And then I got more cameras and started to take pictures of people I care about. And it just has like changed the way I look at the world. So I've been doing it since I was like 17. And I just can't imagine a time when I wouldn't. It really feels like I'll go to a show sometimes and I won't bring my camera, and I'll be like, what do I do with my hands? Like, what do I do here? And I don't know. I'm entirely self-taught. I would love to study it more, but a lot of my studying comes from like, I read a lot of books at the library. I watch a lot of videos online. I talk to a lot of friends about it. Like, I try to be as like open as possible. So if anyone needs anything, I jokingly call myself the gear gal. I've worked with the wonderful, incredible photographer Jess, Shot by Jess on Instagram. They're incredible. And I tell them whenever we're like shooting in the same area, my bag is open to them. Like, if there's a lens that you want, take it. Like, because I'm always just a big proponent of awesome art. And I hope I can always just be either a shepherd of that or helping people achieve that as well. So I don't know. I just love doing photography. So
Yeah, I mean, you said you got your start at 17, and going back and kind of looking through the photos that you took back then when you first started, as compared to now, it's I found it very interesting, like how your style has kind of shifted over time. Like for different periods of your life, you were definitely more focused on, at least through your Instagram presence, that you were really interested in certain styles at certain periods.
yeah.
Can you get into like the different styles and how you've shifted over your growth as a photographer?
Yeah, totally. Definitely. I was just looking at some older photos on my Instagram the other day. You know, it's been a little bit of a journal as I do it. Like, so my style has evolved as I have evolved. Like, one of the biggest things is like a lot of the stuff I was doing before was a lot of self-portraits. And that was a lot of me figuring out my identity and then coming out as trans and being like very proudly and openly trans. It's been really cool to look back and see how my style has shifted away from a lot of like introspection towards myself to being able to express it with my community by taking pictures of like other people and things. And I definitely had a lot more style. I mean, when I first started doing photography, I didn't even a common program is like Lightroom, like the Adobe Suite and stuff like that. I didn't use Lightroom or Photoshop. I edited exclusively in Google Photos. So like I would upload all my photos to Google Photos and then edit them using the sliders. And I went, man, I don't know why this just isn't turning out the way I want it to. And then I discovered the power of shooting in raw format and being able to like really pick apart all those pieces. And it was really cool. And, you know, it always was a tool to connect with people for me. I first started doing photos for friends like Cami, doing stuff for Vanilla Days, and then working with Emily Antonacci for like a feature in Peoria magazine. So it's always been something where my change in myself has always come first, and then my style came after, like followed that. And now it's like a lot like myself, taking big swings on things and having things that are kind of funky and strange. And I like that. So yeah, I mean, a lot of the times I was really focused on technical perfection. And then I realized that that doesn't really matter. And you just make something that you love. And that has been so liberating. So my style has definitely changed as I really love what I make now.
And the stuff that you're making now is so cool. You know, being able to talk with Emily the band about the individual single covers and how they're all just smaller shots of the overall Mwah cover was so cool, because I love like the art aspect of music. Like I think that the album artwork is so important for a project, and you know, hearing them all like dive deeper into all of these little tiny intricate things that you did with it like really tickled my brain in the right way.
Yeah,
It's
so
awesome.
It was so fun. I I went to my local library. Shout out to the local library. Get a library card if you don't have it. But like, and I checked out every I Spy book they had in the district. So every book I had piled in my room, and I read through. And I didn't end up completing it. So nobody can ask for it. But like, I did, based on I Spy books. I don't know how familiar you are with them.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a little like rhyming poem that goes along with the image. And
Okay.
there is one that I was making for the Mwah cover. So that is out there. I don't even think the band has seen it, but yeah, it was I rented every I Spy book, and then taking that actual shot itself was done at our kitchen table. And it's this big round kitchen table, got the pink gingham, put it on the table. And then I had my camera, I didn't have a ladder tall enough. I had it on a monopod extended about 6 feet in the air, and I held it like a boom pole, and then used a timer on my phone, the connected app, to line it up. And it was so fun, very technically challenging, but it was a blast. Always working with Emily the band is a blast.
Stuff like that, like I said, it tickles my brain, because it's the intricate detail of that, like the poem too. Like if you put the poem out, I would have been, oh my God, like how perfect is this? But I wanted to kind of ask you, where do you take that kind of inspiration from, or what would you say your creative process is? Because that is something that is so unique to, especially your photography in general.
Ooh, like, where do I draw my creative kind of energy from? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Like I said, I'm not technically trained in this. Like, I didn't pursue a degree or anything like that. A lot of the stuff I've learned is from observing other people, reading books on it. I'm really into photography history. Like, this is one of the nerdiest things I talk about besides Dungeons and Dragons. So, like, I draw a lot of inspiration of just like, there are a lot of photos out there, a lot of people making really cool art. And I'm of the opinion that just like, for a while, when I was at shows, I'm almost 6 feet tall. So it's not the most convenient when you're standing in front of a crowd as one of the tallest people there taking a photo. You kind of feel like you're blocking it. And for a while I was like, oh man, that's a real bummer. And then another part of me that has started to grow is, but that's my unique perspective, like that little thing. So with that, I mean, I really love portraying energy and motion and color. Like, I think all of that conveys an image. Like, screenshotting something in a moment and having it have to visually convey motion, like energy, sound, like working in concert photography. How do you take a silent image and make that emphasize the gravity and movement of a performer on stage? And it's like, just it's really interesting to kind of break down the pieces of it. And sometimes that means really vibrant colors, sometimes that means really crisp areas. I draw a lot of stuff just from my friends. I think I'm friends with so many fantastic photographers, and especially queer photographers. Like, there's just a unique perspective with being queer anywhere, but I draw a lot of that in the way that I am. Like, a lot of my perspective on life has been drawn from that. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. But
Yeah, it does. And talking about that unique perspective, like I think it's so cool how you're self-taught. I feel sometimes when people try new things, they feel like they have to be an expert right away. And seeing how you just kind of picked it up and you just were persistent in getting all the knowledge that you could and reading stuff at the library, like all this stuff is really within your grasp if you just put your mind to it. If you really want to do it, you could do it. And
yeah,
I think that there's something so pure about that more people should be cognizant of. Like, you can do all this cool creative stuff if you really want to.
yeah,
It's not restricting.
yeah. And there's also like an element of that of I think every creative person who does something with art has a little bit of self-doubt to it. But I always think, like, I described it to a friend the other day as like, when your stomach growls, you're listening to the part of you that's hungry. When you're doubting something about your art, that's something that you can listen to, that you can really tap into and say, like, what is this trying to tell me? What do I think I want to change? What do I want to do different? So it's just really, it's really fun to kind of interact with yourself while you're making art. It's just for you, and I'm glad other people like it too.
The most important thing is that it is for you. Like, that's
Yeah.
the wise words of Rick Rubin in the Creative Act. Like, you have to create for yourself first, and if other people like it, great. If not, well, sucks
Yeah.
for them, but you made it and you're happy with it, so that's what
Exactly.
matters.
I talked with a good friend on the phone about photography. We ended up talking. We meant to talk for 20 minutes, and we talked for 2.5 hours. And they said this really cool thing, which is like, I'm my own biggest fan, and I'm also really glad people like my stuff. So that's the kind of energy I try to have.
Perfect energy. We've been talking about some of the projects that you've worked on, some of the photo types as you've grown. I can tell as of late that you're super passionate about shooting music photography specifically. Did you think that was where you would end up, is shooting music photography, or is there another type of photography that you really look forward to getting into or trying?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have just always been surrounded by music. My younger brother is a musician, and I love taking his photo performing. When Emily and Cami kind of asked me to start traveling along with the band, I really, really got into it. Music was not something I initially anticipated I would be focusing so much on. For a while, I thought photography was always a kind of a support role. Like, you take pictures to support the things going on. And I think that is true, but I've kind of stepped into it being its own art form as well. And I don't know. There's a lot I want to get into this year. I have been really into the idea of macro photography, like real tiny bugs and images. I keep telling my friends once I get enough pictures of bugs close up, I'm going to make everyone a calendar. Or like, I love portrait photography. I love all different types of photography for so many different reasons. Portraits, I think it's really cool to let people see a side of themselves that's like, that's beautiful or feels cool or something like that. And same with music photography. Like I like showing people how I see them. It's really cool when someone gets a picture of themselves and go, well, that really feels like me. It's one of the kindest things I've ever gotten in terms of like kind comments, but all sorts of things. I'm really getting into video as well. I just started uploading some videos to my YouTube channel with some uh, full music performances from times I've been like close to performers and musicians, or any videos of like behind the scenes with a lot of Emily the Band stuff. I was uploading some stuff through Google Drive for Emily the other day, and it was like hundreds of videos that I've taken over the years, and I couldn't be more happy about that. So yeah, I think this year I'd really like to push bounds in the way that I do what I'm already doing. Like, I think there's a lot that I'm exploring right now that I really want to like sharpen that edge and see what that looks like.
The way that you capture the photos is what you said about, that feels like me. When you look through these photos that you've taken, I felt specifically that the black and white photos were my favorite, because and I'm not sure if you're intentionally taking them that way or it's like a filter you apply after, but the way that they stood out, like even without color, like you could tell like there was these pieces of the composition that it still felt like they had color in them and they conveyed those emotions. It was really cool. And then you had like the black and white pictures in contrast with the full color photos in some posts as well. So seeing like how you can convey the emotion without the color and then a photo with the color, they're different because there's no color, but at the same time they conveyed the same emotion. And I thought that was really, really cool. And that's kind of been what you've been doing lately with the black and white stuff.
Mm.
Is that something that you have intentionally like started to look into more and research more on your own, and that's why you're incorporating it?
Yeah, absolutely. I love black and white photography. I joke to my friends. I know it's very apocryphal, but I joke that I see the world like a dog, like in black and white sometimes. um, and but yeah, I think it's an extension of that same thing of like when taking a photo of like a live performance, you have to imagine that photo standing on its own. Like, it has no sound, it has no motion, and then to remove color from that as well, like, it's losing another element, and the composition has to speak for itself. The ways that you enhance just the blacks and whites have to speak for themselves. Like, I really try to go for a very fun kind of like a film look. I've heard a lot of people describe the black and white that I do as like looking like film. And I don't know if that was intentional. I was just drawn to it. I definitely, now I find myself being a lot more intentional. I've read a lot of black and white books, and even just looking at the history of photography, that was it for a while. So to me, black and white photography just feels very visceral. It feels like it always has a bit of punch to it that color conveys, but it really removes, like, because we don't see the world in black and white, it really removes a lot of that like touch of reality a little bit. It makes it feel like it stands on its own a little bit more. And I love that. I really like vivid blacks and shadows and grit, and like, I love comic books, so like there's a lot of that in comic books too. Yeah, it's black and white is one of my favorite things to shoot in. I don't shoot in black and white, but I definitely see the world in black and white, same way that I feel like I see it in still images. Like,
Yeah, the grit and the hearing how you can edit like the blacks and make them darker in certain areas, like that's I was I was completely mesmerized as I was scrolling, and I was like, wow, like I just felt the weight of the image, and it's so lighthearted, but at the same time, like there was like that, like you were describing, that added viscerality. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's a word, but you feel that in the images. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. I think it's really fun. Like I think the number one thing is I always just have fun. Like on the very technical like back end side of it, you can individually in a black and white image that you're editing still edit the kind of presence of each of the colors individually. So a lot of the time when I take a black and white photo, I have a like a red lens filter, and when you shoot through like a red filter, all the blacks and whites really like pop, like especially black. So then turning a red image black and white really makes it funky. So sometimes I'll have a lens filter, or I'll hold it up to my external flash and shoot my flash through the red to really highlight those colors. So it's fun.
And just like that, you guys are getting cheat codes from
Yes.
Caspian, straight from the horse's mouth. You got them.
If anyone ever messages me, it's like, hey, would you like to talk about photography? They're getting a voice memo that's like 4 minutes at minimum back. So
The passion is there for sure. Caspian, you've done a lot of collaborating with some local artists and really conveying these messages with your photos. But do you have any dream collaborations that you hope to do in the future? Or like, I don't know, like sometimes I feel like there's always like, oh, I would love to work with blank. I think just it would be cool because I like them as an artist. But do you have anyone that's like that for you?
oh, absolutely. I mean, of course, there are all the wonderful like local musicians I love. Also, too, this wonderful folk artist Olive Klug came through Peoria and Chicago, and they became one of my favorite musicians extremely quickly. Like they have just such a unique writing style that I'd always wanted to work with them. In terms of photography collaborations, I have a running list. Um, there is an incredible photographer out of Chicago named Bella Peterson. Um, that I am dyslexic, so I always try to get it right. But Elevate Me on Instagram, and they do beautiful, beautiful work. And I have always wanted to collaborate with them. They're all the local photographers in the scene that I regularly love to collaborate. Like again, Shot by Jess, Orpheus Roswell. There are just so many great people that I love to collab with. Like, really, the thing is, if anyone is like, "Hey, I want to work with you. I want to do stuff with you," that is my dream collaboration. Like to be able to share a creative space with somebody and have them kind of trust my vision and trust my ideals, and then we work together to make something is like it's all play. It's all having fun. It's all play to me, and it's like yeah. So my dream collaboration, I don't know, the world, like yeah.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Caspian is ready. That's really cool. I'm going to shift gears slightly because you also posted, and this is rather recently, you started posting some poetry that you've written and for Instagram. Now, people do not know this about me. I feel like maybe 3 people in the world know this about me, but I love poetry. I love reading poetry. I used to write poetry. My sister also writes poetry. She's been published a couple times, and it's all due to like this teacher we had in 8th grade, and she would make us read poems all the time. So shout out Miss Siegel. She
Shout
was the
out.
best. But listening through the poems that you've put out so far, it's so heartfelt, and it paints a picture kind of like the pictures that you take of exactly what you're trying to convey in the heavy metaphors and just the way you format like the stanzas and stuff, especially the one about your grandmother.
Mm.
What pushed you out from behind the lens and to start sharing that? Like what made you take the leap to do that?
It's really interesting. First of all, the I appreciate the kindness, and hey, if you ever dig up those poems, let me know. I love reading poetry. But yeah, I've been writing poems for a very long time. I jokingly call them like my chapters on my Google Docs, which just means I write until they're like 20 or so pages of poems, and then I'll start a new one. So right now I'm on the 28th chapter. Like, so I've been writing a long time, a lot of poems, and I'll regularly perform them out in Peoria here at like the local open mics. But I've always wanted to share them online. I think there's just a poetry to me is like a real source of vulnerability for me. I think it's one of the most vulnerable things I do. Like as a photographer, you're doing a lot of observing, and you're never, unless it's a self-portrait, you're not really in front of it. Like it's a little disconnected from you. And it is my art, but it's also art of other things and other people. Whereas poetry is kind of like, you know, unzipping myself and taking a little bit of it and putting it out there. So I'm actually wearing an old sweatshirt from my grandma today. So what happened was my grandmother, who was 93, Margaret Voss, shout out, she passed away in the past month and a half. And it was a really difficult time for me, and it has been. But also, you know, there's a story I like to tell about her, that she had an operatic singing voice. Like truly went to, after high school, was going to be able to go to college full time for it under a scholarship. But her dad said, if you can read and you can write, you can work. You don't need to go to school, which is a very harsh thing. But again, she's 93. She was 93. So that was a long time ago. And I told myself, I said, like, well, if she's not gonna sing, I'll sing. If she's not going to tell that story, I'll tell that story. So, I mean, she was just an amazing person, and like she got to meet this new version of me. Like she knew me since I was a baby. Besides my parents, she was the second person that held me. Like, and I get to reintroduce myself to her as this like fully kind of evolved woman, and she met me exactly where I was, and that's what that poem, like Donuts, is about. Like I made her donuts, which is the thing she used to make in her parents' bakery, and we sat and ate donuts together, and I explained the complexities of gender to my 90-year-old grandma, and it was great. It was wonderful, and realizing that like she is a piece of me, and that poem is an extension of me, and then an extension of her, and knowing that like poetry is vulnerability, and to me love is vulnerability, and opening that up is has just been awesome. I like being vulnerable and sharing that sort of thing. It's really scary, and I haven't always been, but that's why I started sharing it, because I felt like it's a practice of love, it's a practice of vulnerability, and based on the reception, which was so unbelievably kind, people seem to really connect with it. And I hope to continue sharing it. You know, I've been sharing it at open mics for years, but I always thought like, oh, if I post it to my photography account, people are going to be like, what the heck is this? Like, but then I got such kind words that I realized that people are interested in my art, not just one type of art. So that really inspired me to do it.
People are interested in your art. That had to be a really good feeling, especially like that. It is vulnerable to release poetry. That's why I've never done it, because it's so vulnerable, and especially the way that I learned poetry was there is poetry out there that is just poetry about the mundane things, but it's still really well written, like by Billy Collins and stuff. But a lot of the stuff that I wrote, because I would use it as a tool to help me process things that were happening in my life, and the, you know, whatever issues or trauma that I may have had, or my sister, even with my sister, we were very similar in the style of poetry that we always wrote and would share with each other. So to hear that, like, that's really awesome that you've been able to share it at open mics and stuff. And I'm really glad that now you're putting it out there for a wider audience. And I hope a lot more people listen and, you know, are able to enjoy it as much as the people that hear it in person.
Yeah, thank you so much. And
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I have, like I said, been writing for a long time. So I'm hoping to put it into something physical so that I can give it to people who have been like, please, would you just give me a copy of it for so long? But also, if people are interested in supporting that artwork, it's coming eventually. So
It's on the horizon.
Yeah.
But while we're talking about things that are on the horizon, as you have grown throughout this year, what else can we expect in 2025 from Caspian Voss? Do you have
Ooh.
anything upcoming? Do you have anything you hope to do? You kind of mentioned stuff a little earlier, like your goals for this year, but I don't know, anything definitive that you might want to share or we can expect.
Yeah, absolutely. More photos. I am feeling kind of like there's a fire in my chest right now of like I just want to take photos all the time. And that could be of anything really, but also I am this is I mean, if it's all right to say this in it, I'm calling all photographers. I'm doing a photography interview series starting soon that's working with a lot of photographers. We talked earlier about like, I draw a lot of inspiration from the library, but the books don't talk back to you. So like I wanted to reach out to friends and say, how do you do this? I think you're so incredible. Let's talk photography. Like I want to learn from you. And then I thought, well, I'm not the only person that would want to do that. So being able to record it is just another extension of my art and then my love for these people. And then to be able to share it, hopefully other people can find something too. So it's going to be a mix of like an interview series as well as like portraiture series. Like I'm going to try to do portraits with all of these photographers so that I can still express my art form in a way. That'll also be on my YouTube channel. But that's the big thing on the horizon for me because I'm like, I want to learn from all these people I admire, and maybe and I'd like to call them my friends too. So
That'll be game changing for the creative community everywhere. So be on the lookout for that. Later on, we'll give you Caspian's YouTube link and it'll be in the show notes. So feel free to go check that out and get there ahead of time so that you're prepared for it. But Caspian, we are on our last two questions. Now, I typically ask the musicians certain questions, but I've now changed them just slightly, just at least this next question.
Okay.
So I wanted to see what your favorite part of the creative community overall that exists in Central Illinois. You can talk about the music scene if you want, but I think the creative community is just as important too in the scene that we have.
Yeah. Oh, my favorite part. I mean, the community itself. I mean, like I said, I grew up homeschooled all through high school. I didn't like know a lot of people or have a lot of inbuilt community that comes from like a high school setting. So to walk into a place with a camera and have people know my name and say hello to me and welcome me into spaces that are same way that poetry is, music is so intimate. And I feel so kind of like honored that I get to be in these spaces with people. Also I think the kind of central Illinois area has an incredible sense of like looking out for each other. Like, I've had multiple people message me and be like, hey, here's this opportunity I can't do. I think you'd be perfect for it. And I've done the same for others. Like, it's like, it really feels like a community where everyone looks out for each other. And I really like that. I really like that. I also think there's a great part that raises up like trans and queer and femme musicians. I think that's awesome. Like one of the upcoming events, Gender Envy, I was a previous organizer for. Cameron is a founder. Like, there's been like Girls Rock and stuff like that. Like there are so many incredible organizations that do that. And again, it's like, to me, it's like, I love femme joy, I love trans joy. Like I try to live it every day. And it's really cool. Yeah, I think it's cool looking around, and sometimes it can feel really isolating looking around in a community and not seeing anyone that looks like yourself. But I've been lucky enough and fortunate enough to have a whole bunch of people that I can look around me and recognize pieces of myself in, and it's been great. It's been great.
You mentioned Gender Envy. Our last interview actually was with Rebecca, and we talked about Gender Envy at the upcoming event. So if you haven't listened to it already, go listen to it. It's an awesome interview. We talk about just how important Gender Envy is in the community and the event itself, which is going to be so awesome. So make sure you show out. We're on to the final question, and this is by far the hardest question. Okay. So I don't get mad, but I'm going to make you make a decision here, and it's very hard. Who is your favorite current Central Illinois artist or band. And I'm going to say this in there too. You can't say Emily the band just because of how close you work with them. Maybe we all know that you love Emily the band through your work and everything that you've done with them. So let's get a different answer from you.
Okay. Oh man. There are so many friends of mine that are in the city. I have to pick one.
You could, okay. I've let people pick a couple, so feel free to give a couple.
Goodness. Oh, I was sweating. I was sweating. I was worried I was gonna get some DMs, but yeah. Oh man. Let's see here. I first of all have to shout out my younger brother, Caspian Voss in Peoria. He's like a queer folk musician. Love him. I've seen him writing songs since he was 12 years old. So like big fan. Also Mars O'Helia, Miles Evangelista, just incredible. Love Mars O'Helia so much. Sweet Milk, Venus Overdrive. I mean, they're just I fully cannot choose. A Small Meaningless Rebellion, like it's been amazing. Being surrounded by as many, I feel so privileged that there are so many bands in my head right now that are circulating. So yeah, I think that is my answer, but also I can't choose one. I have to plead the fifth. Like I can't.
Not in any order.
No.
These are the bands that come to mind. There, maybe not all of them are listed that are floating around in Caspian's mind. So again, I always like to preface this that there are so many talented artists in the scene, and just because someone didn't mention you doesn't mean you're not good or anything like that at all. So everyone just has a favorite, and you have to sometimes call out your favorites.
Yeah, and I really use that to shout out my friends in that moment, like my real close friends. The folks I play Mario Kart with, like that sort of thing. So, but yeah, I mean, again, I just love music. Like, being a photographer has given me so many. For a kind of socially anxious person, it's a great way to open a door to a conversation to say, "Hey, I took this cool photo of you," and then you've got a friend. So I like that.
It works out in the end.
It does,
which is awesome. That was our last question, Caspian. That kind of flew by. Like I blinked and it was over. And I'm a little sad, but I just want to say thank you again for spending some time with me and kind of breaking down where you've been and on your photography journey and talking about your art. I think it's so important to share people like you in the community just out here doing their thing and working with all these great artists. So again, thank you so much.
Oh, I mean, thank you. It is such a joy to be able to talk about the art that I make. Oh, I also have my wonderful cat here who is going to interrupt. You want to come say hi? Come say hi. This is my sweet daughter Delilah. She
hello.
Is an angel, and she sleeps on me every night and also throws up on my floor. So you'll see lots of photos of her too. But it's been a joy, and I am so appreciative that you reached out. I mean, it is so kind that you let me share all the things I did. This is something I love so much, and to be able to like exalt that love over podcast form is wonderful.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So we'll be sure to have you back on, though, can talk more about art and stuff. Maybe when you launch your photography podcast, that would be awesome. But until then, be sure to keep up with Caspian after this whole interview. You made it this far. You might as well take the next step and follow her on Instagram. It's at Caspian_radar. And Caspian is CASPIAN_radar, RADAR. It's really easy to type in and find. I'm sure if you already follow some of the people in Central Illinois' music scene and creative community, Caspian's going to pop up right there. So give her a follow. And you can hear her beautiful poetry on there too now. So it even more incentive for you to go and give Caspian a follow. You can also find out more about Caspian's photos over at our website. It's www.caspianradar.com. This will also be linked in the show notes for you, so do not worry. You can go just click on it and it'll take you right there, along with her YouTube, which I'll have that link below. Caspian's going to need to send it to me, but we'll have it down there and we'll let everyone check that out as well. But just like that, that's our show. You've been hanging out with Clubhouse Chronicles, where the sounds are hot, the stories are hotter, and the vibes absolutely off the charts. Don't forget to hit up at Broken Record Music Club on socials for all the news, updates, and more on this podcast, as well as the artists that we work with. Jenny Scara, guess what? We're out on tour. Jenny Scara, she's headlining Gender Envy on Friday, so it's going to be, we have a lot of really cool things coming up for Jenny Scara. We have a couple of artists that might be joining us as well, some that might be familiar to you. So we're really excited about that. I'm just going to build the anticipation there, though. But yeah, so give us a follow to keep up with all that great stuff. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, huge thank you, because there's not a whole lot of people that do, but I appreciate each and every one of you that does. While you're there, on our YouTube, just hit that little subscribe button. It really helps the channel out. We're going to have some cool content rolling out throughout the year. Jenny Scara tour content will be up soon. We just got back from tour. By the time this comes out, we'll be back from tour. So be sure to check that out. It'll be really cool to see all the shenanigans that we got up to. But that's that on that. Until next time, keep it loud, keep it proud, and remember, Central Illinois is where the music magic happens. Peace.